the Trevor Jackson Podcast.
Yeah. So the first piece of content I want to get on is, Barack Obama, man. He said something that really caught my attention about fathers and needing more than one father. And I'm just going to play the content and we're going to converse about it. Let's get straight to it.
That's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy.
Mm-hmm. One dad.
No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be everything.
He can't be everything. And that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly gay folks still weren't out of line, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. Mm-hmm. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
Right. So that I think is creating that community. I know it's corny, but that's what they need.
And we talk a lot about what we had with our mother and father, right? And a lot of times but we really did have a big community of people in our lives.
Right.
That we don't talk a lot about that on this show. We allude to it, but Craig and I, we grew up in a huge community of extended aunts and uncles and cousins and all types of male role models, which helped in broadening out and filling in where our mother and father were limited.
So, I want to say something before I give a take on this. On this episode and in all aspects of life, I feel like I'm not going to agree with nobody in totality. But just because I disagree don't mean I have to be disgruntled. There's not one human being that I agree with in totality. And before I talk about what I disagree with that Obama said, I want to talk about the things that I do agree with. Now, being raised, up in a community is beneficial. I'm going to talk about my experience in the community I grew up in and a little bit about myself, though. But, I think that Obama, what he's saying is accurate about needing a community of individuals. I think that it could be two ways you look at this, and it's just interesting because I feel like what he was saying, he was meaning it in a metaphorical speaking way. It's like he was speaking like a rapper. So, to me, a village is necessary. You have to have a village of individuals that is in alignment with you and your family, and you can be raised. You need multiple men. That's true. You need multiple individuals. I was raised up in front of street dudes who really didn't have my best intentions, but I learned so much by looking at them of what to do and what not to do, what to be influenced by and what not to be influenced by. And it was interesting, but I didn't have a father in the home with me. I probably hadn't seen my father. I can't count on both hands how many times I've seen my father in real life. But I want to say, I was raised up by my mom, my grandma, my uncles, the streets, the hood. It was a whole village that raised me and made me the man that I am today. So with that being said, I agree with the village aspect. But, he said what I had and what guys need. I don't like the fact that Obama has been talking about homosexuality since the inception of his presidency, highlighting it and speaking it like it's something that should be prioritized in this country when there's other things that's more important. It's not even 2% of the country is LGBTQ. You know, you prioritizing something that it has minimal effect on the country. And I understand a person that is that may need that. See, that's the difference. A person that is that may need that. But when he's speaking to the audience, who do y'all think that he's speaking to? Because I don't think he's speaking to Israeli people like this, the Jews. I don't think that he would tell a Jew boy what he needs. I don't think he would tell a Chinese boy what he needs. I don't think he would tell a white boy what he needs. I think he's speaking specifically to black people. And he hasn't lived the black experience, telling the black person what they need. When laws and beneficial things was passed for the Asians and for the LGBTQ community, not for the black boys. The black boys during your presidency got put on a back burner, got left behind. They was highlighting femininity and LGBTQ and putting it up on a pedestal instead of putting black on a pedestal, and it affected the men. And they starting to, when I was listening to this podcast, they was aware of that. But they was speaking in a weird way to me, though. So the reason I don't like what he's saying and speaking to boys like that, because the promotion of sex, and not just gay sex, just sex in general, because I grew up in a time where kissing on commercials and television and sex wasn't even on TV, and it was straight sex. So now that they having this homosexuality sex and it's on TV is just weird to me, because people wasn't even kissing on TV back in the days. But what he's trying to speak the acceptance into it, and by him speaking the acceptance into it, I feel as if this is part of the hindrance of the black family structure. The man not being in the home. People ain't procreating like they supposed to and like they used to. The acceptance of, I don't care what nobody do in their bedroom, but the promotion of this thing is so high that people aren't procreating. I feel like that's important. You can't love your race and not want to you can love your race and not procreate. You can love it. But if you do love your people, you got to procreate, man. That God didn't give us, if you believe in God, God didn't give us that attribute for nothing, to be able to create life. I feel like that's important, man. And, he made some more statements on this episode too, and it was kind of personal what he was saying. He was talking about parenting and what needs to be done with parenting boys. Him and Michelle don't even have boys, but they talking about what needs to be done while parenting boys. Let's get to
many mothers are parenting alone, which is a huge problem. I think Scott Galloway, there are other researchers out there who say that one of the challenges that boys face is that there just aren't enough men in their lives. The men have disappeared, whether through divorce or fatherhood. There are small numbers of male teachers in high schools. Boys are growing up in an education system where they're mostly surrounded by women. Right. Barack, you've talked about the fact that the entire education system isn't even designed to recognize boys and what they need. So, what do we say to Emma? Because again, we don't know whether she's parenting alone or whether she has a husband. But I do think that mothers struggle to figure out what do their sons need. And so they wind up operating out of their own fears and their own instincts, which is to love unconditionally. I think mom was like this. She raised me to be tough because I think she knew what it was like to be a woman. In her mind, she knew what she was preparing me for. The insults, the limitations, the whatever you
the
can think
sexism,
of, the sexism, the biases. So she knew you have to have a mouth. You have to be able to speak up for yourself. With you, she wanted you to be nice so that you wouldn't get in trouble or you wouldn't get arrested. But was that who you were? So what do we say to the Emmas of the world? How do we sort of start thinking as a society about helping mothers raise sons because they're doing it alone, and we're being told that we don't have what it takes to give boys all of what they need.
Well, look, I think you started hinting at it. As somebody who was raised by a single mom, not perfectly, but that unconditional love as a start is the right one. Mm-hmm. I do think, though, thinking about raising boys in the same way you're thinking about raising daughters, which is how do you make them good, responsible people who know how to function and know how to understand themselves well enough that they can navigate this really complicated world, and setting high expectations. So there are a lot of these things that apply to boys and girls. I do think that there are some particular issues with boys that as a society we're not addressing. I do think as a society we have to create more structures for boys and men to have guidance, rituals, frameworks, encouragement, to be able to meet a wide range of role models so that whatever their inclinations, they can see a path to success that isn't just sports or money, making a lot of money. And so that's on all of us together. What I would say to Emma would be, in your community, even if you have a wonderful male partner who's in the house, I think it still would be good to find assets in the community, people in the community, friends in your community, places of worship, community organizations, what have you, where there are a bunch of men.
I'm gonna just give y'all my perspective on family structure and parenting structure. I'm not a parent, but I see things. I intertwine with people that's parents. I communicate with people who've made decisions that they feel as if they regret because they may have created life with a person that they wish they would have thought before they did that. To me, the strength of a country is when you see families. The strength of a family, when the family is together. That's the strength of the whole of the country should be built around family structure. A husband, a wife, the kids. When you see a big family, a family reunion, when you see family going out to eat, a family-owned business, when you see family structure, that creates a structure of you can depend on somebody instead of needing to depend on the government, to depend on a job, to depend on anything. When you got the cousin, the uncle, the grandmama, the great-grandmama, the granddaddy, the daddy, my cousin's daddy, I can ask him for assistance if I need it. Just that shows the strength of a country to me, family structure. Now, when you don't incentivize, I feel like you should incentivize people for creating life instead of criminalize them. Let's think about that for a minute. Like, what's your thoughts about that in the comment section? I need your thoughts on that right there in the comment section. Should America incentivize family structure instead of criminalizing it? Because if you are not financially stable, right? So you got a choice to make, decisions to make. If you're not financially stable, they telling you you'll be punished for having sex. Because if you create life and I have to assist you with this creation that you just created, and I have to give you government assistance, then the father can't be in the home. So I'm punishing creation instead of incentivizing it. You doing what's right. Both of y'all go get a job. Both of y'all contribute to society, and I incentivize you. I might give you some money. I might pay for this. I might pay for that, and give you $100,000 extra to, you know what I'm saying, or create some sort of way to incentivize people for having children instead of punishing them. We punish people for wanting to go further their education by creating a debt structure, giving you loans for a couple of $100,000 to go to school. We punish people in America for doing what's right. So that's interesting to me that they saying what they saying. I like that Barack Obama said that, you need to know who you are. Knowledge of self. Because knowledge of self will make you aware of what you can, what you will, what you won't accept. So I agree with that statement, though. But this was just an interesting conversation, man, because they spoke about boys a lot and homosexuality a lot. And I feel like homosexuality shouldn't be that put on a pedestal like that, though. But it is what it is, man. And they had a great conversation. I seen that it went viral and everything, though. But I would like to further the discussion in the comment section below with y'all, man. That was just an interesting take.
The Trevor Jackson Podcast.